French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France is open to protecting its European allies with French nuclear weapons. This could mean that if Russia were to nuke Poland, France would nuke Russia. No one wants the nightmare of getting nuked, so in theory, the threat of nuclear retaliation means that no one will launch the first strike and we all live happily ever after. In theory. Several EU nations, including Poland and Germany, have already expressed a strong interest in the idea, so this could actually happen. Greetings, children. I'm your host, Silly Conversations, and today...
Hello, I am real citizen of Collective West. Tell me, does the US not already protect Europe with their nuclear weapons? Why provoke Russia in this way?
Hello, real person who is definitely not a Russian bot. There are US-controlled nuclear weapons in Belgium, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands. However, the US is under no legal obligation to use these or any nuclear weapons to retaliate against a nuclear strike on Europe. Article 5 of the NATO Treaty states that an attack on any NATO member in Europe or North America will be treated as an attack on all, but the required response from other NATO states is just such action as it deems necessary to restore security. That vaguely covers everything from total war to throwing Vladimir Putin a fun birthday party. Since taking office, President Trump has not only said he wouldn't defend NATO countries who fail to hit non-binding defense spending targets, he actually refused to rule out using military force to seize control of Greenland, which is part of NATO and whose people are EU citizens.
Mr. President, we need you in the Situation Room. NATO is under attack.
From who?
The United States, sir. Wait a minute.
The US has also made a stunning pro-Russia pivot this year, temporarily pausing military support for Ukraine as a diplomatic pressure tactic, calling their democratically elected president a dictator, and opening direct negotiations with Russia to decide the fate of Ukraine, without inviting Ukraine or their European allies. Far from being a reliable defense partner for Europe, the US is now actively threatening us and undermining our strategic interests, as they pivot towards containing China in the Indo-Pacific. If only there was a powerful EU member state that had spent decades advocating and preparing for Europe to be able to defend itself without relying on the US. Well, bonjour, mon ami. France is one of the 9 countries that have nuclear weapons, along with the US, Russia, China, the UK, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and probably Israel. According to publicly available information, France has an arsenal of around 280 active nuclear weapons, which is more than enough to send Russia back into the Stone Age. Macron has made clear that the French military will maintain full control over these weapons under any nuclear sharing deal. And honestly, that's fair. Even if it wasn't, it's probably politically necessary to get any kind of deal through the fractured French parliament. Extending the French nuclear umbrella could be as simple as Macron unilaterally declaring that he'll treat a nuclear strike on any EU nation as a strike on France. However, the French nuclear arsenal costs over €5 billion per year to maintain. Instead of leaning on French generosity, we could sign a formal treaty whereby the EU covers some of this cost, and in exchange gets legally binding nuclear deterrence, which, remember, is something we don't currently get from the US.
But if the EU pays France for nuclear protection, then the US will demand payment also.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. Our relationship with the US has gone from a strong alliance built on mutual trust and respect to an entirely transactional protection racket. Under a nuclear sharing deal, France would get to increase their influence in Europe while reducing the financial burden on French taxpayers of maintaining these weapons, which would stay under the control of the French military. Europe as a whole, meanwhile, gets to show unity in the face of Russian aggression, reduces their reliance on the US, and gets to have reliable nuclear deterrence without violating the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's an absolute win-win. Unlike the US, France is inherently invested in European security, because France is actually in Europe. Also, although France is a large nation within the EU, they're not so large as to create the same kind of enormous power imbalance that currently leaves us open to bullying from the United States. Moving French nukes into Poland and the Baltic states could also be an effective way of telling Russia, no touchy, back off, we mean it.
Russia is nice country that would never invade more of Europe, but what if doing this makes them launch their nukes and kill you all?
Firstly, we could nuke them back. That's literally the whole point of nuclear deterrence. And secondly, as part of their systematic strategy of nuclear blackmail while invading Ukraine, Russia has moved dozens of nuclear warheads into Belarus. So they're obviously not opposed to the principle of protecting an ally with nuclear sharing. Personally, I think that nukes are a conceptually disgusting class of weapon designed specifically to kill civilians en masse, and that the risk of accidentally annihilating the human species over a misunderstanding massively outweighs any positive impact they may have in deterring conventional war. However, we cannot negotiate global nuclear disarmament from a position of weakness. If you're a European citizen and you want to live under this nuclear umbrella, you can send your representative in the European Parliament a cryptic pictographic message supporting the idea. Or like an email. Let me know in the comments if anyone actually does that. It took me like 5 minutes. You can also share this video with your friends, like and subscribe so the YouTube algorithm recommends it to more people, and don't forget to argue with pro-Russian bots in the comments below. And of course a very special thank you to Wilkerson Whittle, Betone App, Kenna Kofer, Drarko91, Me, Myself and I, and Ace Angel 4251 for leaving a super thanks on my last video and financially supporting Silly Conversations. If you liked this video, you may also enjoy this one about Canada joining the EU, or this one about effective AI safety regulations.
And to the nation of France, merci pour tout le travail que vous faites pour protéger l'Europe.
See you all next time.
Au revoir for now.